Running campaigns is not easy, but if at first you don't succeed, the important thing is to try again and to never quit. Hail adventures! Let's talk about first game blues. First game blues meaning that I've seen it happen that people get frustrated with the first games they run and they don't ever run again. Now this is a problem because we want more game masters in our world. Hopefully more good game masters because we have a lot of crappy ones out there anyways. Granted, what you think is crappy, what I think is crappy, what that guy thinks is crappy, and what that girl thinks is crappy are totally different crappies. But what's important is don't stop playing. I've had friends that their first games, one of them was an ARMR game. It was the first game he ran, and it was fun. It had its problems because, well, it was a big party. I think we were 6 or 7 in total, and it's understandable why he got so many people at the beginning during his first campaign, because what he has seen before that, the game that he had played in before that, also had like 10 different players. So he had a big party. It was an Everon. It was the first game I ever played in actually, and I played an elf fighter because I thought, you know, fighter is the easiest class to play. The hint is not really, unless you want to be unless you don't mind being crappy at the game. That's getting more into the whole, you know, being a munchkin versus being an adequate player, being an optimized character and all that brouhaha. No, the thing is, the game was going well. I remember I had to skip one session because it was in college and I needed to go to a class, or I didn't go that day. I used to skip class a lot just to play tabletop role-playing games. I skipped a session, and it was a bit after we got captured by some goblins and were able to escape from the goblin camp. Excuse me. And there was a paladin there. And the player, apparently he didn't like the group mechanics, so he told the game master, hey, can I break away from the rest of the team and then you can run one-on-one sessions for me? The game master said yes. Nowadays he wouldn't say yes. He has learned a lot. He is a much more competent game master than that nowadays. Now, that happened, and the next day that we were gonna play, the next day that I asked him, hey, what happened? Oh, Amos the paladin broke away from the team and he left you and the other guys back, and I really did not like the other group. Besides Jay being in that group, the other players were not really team members. They would like to faff around a lot, and the player that played Amos, he was more of a let's get to roleplay kind of deal, and that's what I like. You know, I like, you know, if I'm playing a role-playing game, I like to roleplay. If I'm going to hang out with my friends, then I'll hang out with my friends. But during the game, I just want to, you know, do the game, not just faff around. Faffing around is a part of it, but not. It shouldn't encompass the whole session. So I told him, okay, so what my character did, he went off with Amos, and he said, oh really? And I'm like, yeah. Oh, but you weren't there. And I said, when I found out what Amos did, I left the group and I went after him. And he said, oh, okay, no problem. After that, we started playing, and me and him, it was a two-player session. 2 sessions afterwards, Amos' brother, the player that plays Amos, had a brother, and he joined us. And he had Caster, a Warforged wizard. So we were a 3-man team. A paladin, a fighter, and a wizard. No healing. Not that we really needed it. So we played a couple of sessions. Raided not raided a house. We wouldn't raid a house, a little paladin, but helped the house that was being overrun by chokers. We killed the chokers. I stole a bottle of wine. I drank the bottle of wine to celebrate. The paladin didn't need to know that I stole a bottle of wine. Then we headed on to the Talenta Plains because I wanted to get myself a Talenta Sharash. I think is the name of the weapon. It's a weapon similar to a scythe, but it's more battle ready than a regular scythe. And we went there. I was gonna get it masterwork, and that's the last thing we did in that game. After that, we didn't meet up for the game. I don't remember if the game master ever gave us a reason, or if he just wasn't satisfied with the game he was running, but just the game just stopped. And that was his first game. And the problem with your first game being a game that you don't finish is dangerous, because then you make it into a habit. I'll get into that once I talk about Hiatus, the Eater of Worlds. It's a phenomenon that can happen in tabletop role-playing games that just kills games altogether. Now, I tell you that story to tell you another story about another friend of mine that his first game was the chicken game. The Chicken's a 4th edition game. It was the first game he ever ran. He wanted to evolve it into another game, into a full-blown game, but it never picked up. I think he also lost interest. And part of it was because it was 4th edition. As everybody knows, 4th edition sucks. But yeah, after that he ran a couple of other games, but they also fell through the cracks. He wanted to run a changeling game. He actually had a map prepared. He actually drew a map of the hedge, if you can believe that. It was really cool, and I told him straight up, I'm not gonna play because I'm not a big fan of World of Darkness. It's not my cup of tea. I hate bubbles. You know, the whole I roll 5d10s and I get no successes. I like my modifiers. That's what I'm saying. I really like my modifiers. Or at least that the dice are more forgiving than just roll a 9 or a 10. Or is it an 8 through 10? Regardless, I really don't like that system. But it also happened to him. I don't know what their thoughts on their own games are, on their own first games. I could ask them though. They're a phone call away, but it's too much work. But I tell you that story to tell you my own personal story with my own first game, because if your first game sucks, it's fine, because you'll have more opportunities to grow as a game master. And you will, because after you finish a game, you can just play somebody else's game and then run a game yourself. If you have a big group with multiple game masters, what you have to do is, alright, I finished the game, who wants to run next? You want to run next? Alright, you run, then you run, and then I'll run again. And you make sure that the campaigns aren't 3-year-long campaigns, because then you would have to wait 3 years for your turn. You make it like a yearly thing. Or if you have a campaign that lasts like 6 months, then yeah, 6-month thing. Usually in my gaming groups, our campaigns last from 4 to 7 months. The longest I think I run that it was like 10 months long. One actually almost got to a year. But that's what you do. You rotate it and make sure your game doesn't take the rest of your lives. So everybody gets to play new builds, everybody gets to play new characters, and everybody gets turn to run a game. Segue, coming back. Okay. After, don't get disheartened if your first game sucks, because it might happen, it might not happen. You might have a really good knack for this, and maybe you've played in so many games that when you run your first game, you're so conditioned with other people's game that you run a really good game, and that's amazing. I ran my first game after that first Everon game. So I had half, 1/3, 1/5 of a campaign under my belt. And I said, you know what, I like the idea of being a game master, so let me do it. And I did it. And to this day, I wouldn't say it's my worst game ever run because it was my first one. I was gonna do a lot of mistakes, and man, did I make them. I made references to video games left and right, references to anime, not anime, references to cartoons, because I wasn't a big fan of anime back then. I really wasn't. Like, back then, what I watched in anime was Big O, which is still my favorite anime of all time, Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, and not Sailor Moon because they had discontinued that. Sailor Moon was actually fun to watch. Now, I remember I prepared so much for my first game because the idea was there was a big competition happening all of Everon. Everon was the only campaign I knew, so I was gonna put my game in a homebrew version of Everon, where I modified the whole lore. The Moorland was moved down because it was starting to clean up, but in reality, it was invading the Idenal elves or something like that. It was a crazy thing I did because I didn't have the Everon books. I knew a little bit about Everon, but I didn't have the Everon books. So I just made my own homebrew thing with Everon with the little things I knew about Everon. And man, did I railroad the players so much. It's gonna happen. Especially if you're so unexperienced like I was back then, you are gonna railroad the players because, you know, the way I saw it, it was just they're playing Final Fantasy. I'm making a Final Fantasy game. You know, that was the school I came from. Is it right? Hell no. It's a really wrong way to think about it. But I have grown immensely after that. I do know that railroading can be used for good, and sometimes you have to railroad players because they won't do anything. But I'll also have a video on railroading eventually. Oh man, that's a good one. Now, I prepared, because the players were going to be in teams. I also made the mistake that I had like 10 players in my game. Never doing that again. So I prepared some rubies, and I colored them, and I prepared them, and I cut them up, and I gave them to all the players, and I actually printed out invitations to the competition, and I gave all the players an invitation with the little ruby I hand drew and colored. I felt really, really happy and proud of myself. I've never done anything like that after that. I was like giving stuff to my players as props. Maybe I should do that again because it's a nice touch. It's a really nice touch. So they were gonna go all around everyone, finding really these little knick-knack artifacts with a lowercase a. They were really bad magic items. Now I'm wondering because I do have a couple of them. In my old notebook, but you know what? Eventually I'm gonna do a separate video talking about them. Oh man, they're so bad. Actually, I have taken a couple of them and I have turned them into actual magical items, and I've actually like statted them out, and I've released them in my blog and stuff like that. But actually balanced and actually game worthy. How? Yeah, one of them actually is in the Dragon's Horde that you can buy from Flaming Crab Games. I think one or two of the items that I made for that first game back in 2007 is actually in that book, if you can believe that. That was a really crowning achievement for myself when I started game design. It's like this crappy magic item. It's called the Kraken Sword. It's a sword that you wield and its tentacles come out and they attach to your face and they let you breathe underwater. Of course, the Dragon's Horde versions flavor very differently than that. So they were gonna go all around everyone, getting a lot of magic items, and at the end of the year, the team with the most magic items were the winner. Now, in reality, what was happening is There were 9 teams because each team was sponsored by one of the Archdukes of Hell. I had recently bought myself the Book of Baal Darkness, and I was attached to that book so much because it was my first book, and I still love that book to this day. So I wanted to do something with the devil, with the devil archdukes. Sorry. So each team was a member of. Each team was sponsored by a different archduke. At the end of the year, the team with the most magic items will be declared the winner. In reality, what they wanted to see is the winners were just gonna be turned into demons. I mean, into devils, into powerful minor dukes of hell, because they wanted to get, you know, the strongest people everyone could give. So they set out. I remember the first few sessions, and and this is gonna happen to you. Players are gonna test your patience. They're gonna push to see how far away. They're gonna push and see how far they can push you. You know, I had one player that I told him, oh, you got the letter and you got the ruby, and he said, oh, I sold the ruby. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I sold the ruby. When they came to pick me up, I just sold the ruby. I said, okay, they gave you another one and they put you in the airship. Nowadays I would have told him, no, you didn't. He said, no, I sold the ruby. No, you didn't. And they're like, oh, I sold the ruby. Fine, a demon comes in, eats you, make a new character that doesn't sell the ruby. Because sometimes players want to push you. One of the things I had in the game was that if they were participating in the competition, they would get free lodging at the inns of the major cities. And one player misconstrued that as, oh, I'll get free magic items. So they went to a store to get a ring of a large person. And, well, the guy said, oh, give me the ring. I want the ring. And I was being the store clerk, and I'm like, I can't give you the ring without money. So they were pushing. Eventually, I told them to, like, the NPC told them, like, hey, if you don't have money, I'm not going to sell you anything. And they kept wanting to be in the city to see if they could smoosh off people. Sorry. So I had to stick a giant mechanical scorpion after them. It's in the Secrets of Cendric book. I also had the Secrets of Cendric book back then. And they got out of the town. So I had to force them out of the town because they just wanted to keep mooshing off of people. After that, I railroaded them a couple of times to a couple of towns, forced them to sit through a couple of cutscenes because I thought that was cool back then. I had a Deus Ex Machina happen at one point with one of the artifacts because I thought that was okay, and it's not okay to have a Deus Ex Machina. Not really. The players should be the stars of the show, not any magical item, not any artifact, not any NPCs. If you're gonna have an NPC as the main guy, kill him off quickly. Like, you can have the players know this very powerful NPC. He's sort of like the boss, and then have like someone over, obviously more powerful than him, just kill him outright. The point is, don't take away the importance of the players, you know. And I did that a lot in my first game, and I shouldn't have. I had references to Sephiroth. I had references to Aang from Avatar. I had reference, and that's one I actually liked. I still think it's funny to this day. It was Jamie Heineman and Adam the Savage, and they were the Dungeon Busters. Obvious and stupid homage to the Mythbusters, but I'm a huge fan. And they had a flesh golem who was Buster. And they would go to different dungeons, map them out a little bit, and then sell the maps. You know, they know what's in this dungeon. And stuff like that. To me, that was a fun little reference I had in that game. I haven't used it ever since, because I just avoid references like the plague. You should too. Unless all your players are into it and they all like it, then you know the more power to you. But I usually just avoid references like the plague. Then during the game, they kept on getting artifacts. They started uncovering all these hidden plots with the archdukes and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, it was a non-hero game, but it was a non-good game because the players were non-good. But it was a heroic game because they were gonna end up saving the world. Because that's the type of game I like to run. I like the whole saving the world scenario. So a session happened. I was already getting like May came, and after May we went to a short hiatus because I wasn't gonna run anything during the summer because we didn't have a place to play. So back in August, once we reconvened at college, we started gaming again, and that's when it happened. I was already getting a little bit iffy. I had a really long, really bad campaign under my belt that another player had run. Really bad game, and I said, you know what? I'm not really feeling it. How this game has been panning out. I railroaded the players so much. We have had interesting moments, but honestly, I don't like it. So a player, without him knowing, gave me an out because they were going through a really tough boss fight. And there was a guy there that was an artificer, and he had a lot of wands. He was the blastificer, right? And he's gonna shoot, but there's a player in the way. And he says, man, I can end this right now, but I don't want to shoot you. And then famous last words, don't worry, I'll make the save. Don't worry, I'll make the save. Granted, he had a big leeway with making the save because his reflex save was really high. Don't worry, I'll make the save. Now this part to me is a little bit blurry. I don't remember whether or not he actually rolled a 1. I like to say he rolled a 1 because that's hilarious if he did. But that was so long ago that I don't even remember. That was almost 10 years ago almost. He died. Went way past -10. The villains were almost done. They had to clean them up a little bit, but the blastificer got knocked out, got to negative something, not to -10, he was still alive, he got to negative something. And that was the only death. That character, I don't even remember what that character was because that character had so many that player had so many different characters. I don't even remember which one that was. Then a Goliath Sword Sage, I think it was, from Book of 9. He said, is he still alive? And I'm like, yeah, he's still alive. I coup de grace him. I snap his neck. And I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, he killed my best friend. So I'm gonna kill him now. And I'm like, of course, it was also a rookie mistake on his behalf because I think that was the 3rd game he had played. So, you know, like nowadays, I'm like, you know what, it was like his 3rd or 4th game he's ever played. So, and it was the first game I had run. So, you know, accidents happen. You're not knowing how to react to things like that. Man, but I was in shock. So I had 2 players down. One because of circumstance, an unlucky roll, and the other one because he accidentally killed another player. Accidentally killed another character, didn't kill the player. And then another player killed his character in retribution. I said, you know what? This is my out. I don't want to run this anymore. I want to run this, but I don't want to run it as it is. So the next day I told them, I'm going to reset. They're like, what? I'm going to reset the game. I'm going to reset the game. You're all going to start at level 11. I think it was around level 11, level 9. And we're going to restart the whole campaign. I don't like how it ended. I wasn't too happy with the direction I was taking. It seemed too hokey. Even though it's still gonna have the whole artifact thing, but I'm gonna take it a little bit more seriously. I'm not gonna have references left and right. And I didn't like the whole PvP thing. I really didn't like it, and I still don't to this day. So we began. We started the game again, and after that, the game went on a lot smoother. It ended weirdly because it ended with I had like 5 players only. I made sure not to have too many that time. I said no, I have a limit now. I learned this from the last time I was running this game. I'm not gonna have more than 6 anymore. So I think I had 6, but usually it will fluctuate between 4 and 5. Then during the last session, I actually ended up with 12. Because some people was like, oh, it's your final session, can I play? And I'm like, whatever, sure. And I had a really big boss fight with like 5 different NPCs that were the bosses against the cadre of players. But what you should take from this is you're gonna grow. Because I've grown so much from that game, and you know, give yourself a chance to grow as a game master. Give yourself a chance to run your game. Listen to your players, because that's something else I want to talk about eventually. If you don't listen to your players, you're not gonna grow ever, and that is a very dangerous place to be in. So listen to your players. Don't worry, you're gonna grow. If you do have to do a reset, do it. But please try not to cancel your game outright, because you might turn that into a habit. And if you make it into a habit, you're never gonna run a game ever again. One video, and you've done 0.